All right, comes my intro. Are you ready for this fat intro?
Yeah, dig it.
Okay. Hello, everybody. This is the Jeskidding Podcast, where sometimes I say things that are a little inappropriate, and I was like, I'm just kidding. And then other times I say things that are thoughtful and hopefully intelligent, and you go, just kidding, like a light bulb. Okay, we're done with that. We're here today with, I'd say I'm your biggest fan, but you've already got your own biggest fan, Paul Kontonis. Legendary web innovator, creator, former CMO of WHOSAY influencer marketing company, and CBS Viacom, and like a Digitas, and like a gazillion companies. We'll get to it. Here is a guy that knows about influencer marketing from the ground up, and we're going to ask him a lot of sort of real, like, from the street level questions, and then some sort of high level questions. I know a little bit about it, but he knows a lot about it. Okay, so Paul, we're going to get right into it today. We're going to talk about you later because you're secondary to this topic, I think.
Love it.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Okay. So, Paul, what's an influencer? What exactly is an influencer? How would you describe it?
What is an influencer?
Right.
An influencer is an individual who has some kind of influence over some group of people.
Okay.
It is up for debate how many people that actually means. There are multiple categories, from like icons that are big film and TV stars to people who are up and coming creators or talent that you might see in an HBO series or something on Hulu, to people who are just big on social, to people who are musicians,
right.
Athletes, somebody that has a reason for being who they are.
Interesting. So, but it still sounds a little obscure to me. Would you say it's somebody
extremely obscure? One platform will tell you that there's 10 million influencers. Another platform will tell you there's only 15,000 influencers.
So, and is it defined, you think, by the amount of people that follow what they do? Or do you think it's defined by the specific people that they reach? Or it could be either category?
Any category at any time.
Wow. So would you say that everybody's an influencer then, in one way or the other?
Influence is in the eye of the beholder.
Interesting. So in your jobs, in your many, many jobs, but more towards like later in your career or more current, right? You have, used influencers for big companies and big brands. Like, I'm just saying, not that you did them specifically, but Coca-Cola and that kind of level brand.
Mm-hmm.
What would they look for in an influencer?
Can I put something into context?
Yeah, please.
All right.
As much as you want.
So
the floor is yours.
Influencer marketing, the term marketing, is the idea of working with influencers to help convey your message out to people, right? It is estimated to be like a $2 billion industry.
Wow.
It's about that much money is spent on it. And that's everything from we're gonna send 500 people a pair of sneakers and hope they post something really good, to Coca-Cola doing a campaign, or M&M's doing a campaign, or Clorox or Burt's Bees, or any one of these brands doing it. WHOSAY was the largest of all the companies involved in doing these kinds of things, about 10 times larger than the next biggest company. We were part of Viacom CBS. We are part of Viacom CBS. I recently left from there. And the idea was how to help advertisers work with all these online influencers. So when you get a big brand involved, the big advertiser, the brand is trying to become more relatable, more authentic to their audience by working with somebody who they think their audience likes.
Interesting.
Right? In the old-fashioned days, it's celebrity spokespeople.
And so what they've moved away a little bit from is like the traditional sort of like, let's spend all our money on TV commercials and print ads and like newspapers, which don't exist as much. And now they're using more directly targeted marketing by having people that other people listen to or are influenced by say good things about what they sell.
Kinda. So you're kind of right on the print side. Sorry, not the TV side.
No.
On the print side, on print, newspapers and magazines. Yeah, they still exist, but they're very small. You're wrong on the TV side. TV is still where the majority of advertisers spend their money. And it's where the majority of the CMOs, the chief marketing officers, people like myself, would say that's where they get the biggest bang for their buck. If you're the CMO of Domino's Pizza and you run a new TV ad across the country, your sales go up. right away with the promo, with the commercial.
Interesting.
You do a big digital campaign, you get a whole lot of influencers, you get a whole lot of this, you put it on Instagram, you do that. Sales don't seem to move.
Do you think it's because that the people who are consuming like the media now are younger and less just financially enabled, and the people who are just slightly older than them are still watching traditional television?
Well, you definitely skew a little bit older. The median age on TV is something like around 50, let's say. It's like a median broadcast TV, cable TV. But when you start factoring in a Hulu, a YouTube TV, watching stuff on Roku, stuff on Apple TV, what is it? It's a big TV experience. Jesse, when we first got together back in 2007, and we were working on stuff, and I had started a company, For Your Imagination, we were creating series for digital, but you could always watch them on a TV. And we would always say, is this just web TV? Is it just basically TV on the platform? So
those commercials do run here too. So it's on Twitch and everywhere else.
Here. Yeah. So, and if you're whatever screen you're watching it, really. And so, you've got like Pluto TV, which is about 20 million people that are aged from 18 to no more than 34. And they're watching 2 hours a day.
Wow.
Of free, what's called linear TV, one program after another and after another. So what's come around, what's interesting about influencer is it used to be just get somebody on Instagram to show up to your location.
Right. To show that they were there.
Picture. Look at me, Fire Festival.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing. Or maybe to be in your restaurant. Oh, we're at this really great place. Yo, check it out.
Right.
Or maybe to, have your shirt on or your jewelry or whatever. It's gone from that to working with an influencer because they add something editorial to it. Maybe they've got a creative style. You take that piece and then run it on TV.
Right. So if you grab what they do naturally and sort of import it into the old school media so that it reaches both the new audience and the audience that already follows them.
And let me tell you, the younger creators love that because you're now taking their piece of content and amplifying it with the power that the brand has.
It's much better.
And these younger creators want the brand's power.
Much better. So and it's much better because like nobody wants to step outside of themselves and because they feel like they're betraying their own audience by doing it, and they can come across more as like a shill or
And look, if somebody's got built up an audience of 200,000-300,000 people doing something in particular, right? They've got a style. They've got something that resonates with a certain kind of audience.
Right.
Why not? And if that audience overlaps with your audience and demographics, psychographics, all these things, go for it. Give them the keys to the kingdom.
Right.
With a little bit, some guardrails, a little bit, but say, hey, go for it. Come up with something really cool to help us talk about our new, Whopper.
Right. So in the chat room, we have a chat room we broadcast live on Twitch. Luke McKay said, I was an influencer once. And then he said, I was under the influence. But he's making a joke. But he was doing all the comics for a while for Rooster Teeth.
Nice.
And had quite a wide reach through his position and his artwork. In fact, there's a lot of people who come by here that have a lot more influence than they think. Let's go to a couple questions. So how does somebody go from like an everyday pleb to become an influencer? Is it just purely a numbers game? How do you make that happen? Because there's money involved in this, right? It's a career for some, right?
I could tell you the best way to do it.
Okay.
And the best way to do it is get a starring role on a digital series like Westworld or Game of Thrones or Stranger Things.
It's amazing you call those digital series. That's amazing.
Get a part on there.
Done.
And
Done.
You have a second career as an influencer. Boom. Like
right. And that becomes because you are you absorb all of the credibility of the thing that you're part of, right? So get a position that's front facing on a much larger media platform with a much bigger megaphone than what you have, and you will absorb some of that megaphone for yourself.
And you have real fans, right? But that's a crazy, right? Not everyone can.
Right. Not everybody's. I'm not going to get a show. They're not casting. Million, right? They're not casting this on Westworld. Maybe
if it's somebody karate death.
Yeah, maybe. Thanks. That's my role. I'm going to come in karate death, and 10 million fans later, I'm going to be selling Subway sandwiches. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be me. Actually, I've got the look. I think I
make a great Subway segue.
I would. Yeah. Well, to work at Subway.
A little heavy on the mayo.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'd influence at Subway is how much mayo you got on your sandwich.
That's all you were able to do.
Yeah, it's really kind of sad.
But otherwise, look, if you can find your voice, I think the really good influencers. I'm going back to the fan.
It's hot. Yeah, bro, you're suffering through this for me. You're crying on camera as you're explaining to people what an actual influencer is. People hate influencers. They hate them. Did you know that? I told him that today, and he was surprised.
I know.
People in general, like even in the chat room, the word influencer is like a dirty word. It's something people aspire to, and maybe it's a hatred of them, But they don't like, somebody wrote Jared, because I'm from Subway, for Jeskid. I don't really like that at all. That was not funny. Like spelled Jerrid. It's Jeskid, thank you. And I don't do bad things. So I think that there's a sort of negative connotation with influencers out there. And I think it comes from either, maybe it's like a little bit of jealousy, but maybe it's like, it feels like a snooty word. It feels, what do you think of the actual word? It feels like somebody's like, oh, I'm an influencer. I've got influence. It doesn't sound like something that's just like a marketing thing.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of influencers really call themselves an influencer until they start getting presented by their manager or agent,
as an influencer, right?
Or as an influencer, and they're put in that category, right? So we had defined a category of influencer that was really social influencer. It was like somebody who happens to build a following on a platform,
right?
And the trick to that is get into the platform as early as you possibly can.
Right.
We know people who were early YouTubers who still have a couple of million subscribers and still are able to figure a few things out here or there, right? The early Twitter, early Facebook, early Instagram.
But I've noticed that there was a new platform, Byte, right, that came out, a competitor to TikTok. And I dove in just to see what that early adoption would be like. And it's so interesting now that there are, within a day, bots, to serve people to sort of game the system within like a day. There's designers out there trying to say, I'm going to be an early adopter. I'm going to rush in and figure out the system before anybody else does. And if this system goes, I'm going to go with it. Like for me, I missed the boat on YouTube. It was the stupidest thing I ever did because I didn't like the quality on it. And I was big in every other place in the web. And it cost me because that was the place where everybody went, right? And when you avoid the place that's most popular, you don't get some of the popularity that comes with it. It happens. There's no tears. There's no tears. I don't have a fan to make my tears go away like some people in my stream. So tell me, how do influencers get paid? That's the big question. That's what everybody would want to know, right? Everybody who would want to become an influencer, get a social media following, or join a company that has a social media following, how does that person get paid?
So at some point, an advertiser, a brand, a marketer, will say, we want to work with you, and work out a deal with how they're going to work with you. Typically, there is some relationship between how many fans you have and how much you get paid. It's completely inaccurate to do that because of this magical phrase I'm going to teach you all called organic reach.
I like it that you're just staring at the camera after you say that. What do you mean by that? Okay, I didn't know if you froze or what happened.
Letting it
was marinating.
Like,
oh my God!
Organic reach.
You may need the fan to blow that organic reach off your face.
Right. So how many fans do you have? Fans. Right. How many followers do you have on Twitch?
Right. Me personally?
How many? Yeah.
3,500.
3,500.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, and we have 6 right now.
We have 9. We went up.
9. That is what's called organic reach.
Ah, I see.
So without doing anything else, you reach that many people. The level of organic reach on Facebook is below 2%.
Right.
So if you have 100 friends and you post something, only 2
right. Yeah, we've talked about
see
this.
it naturally in their feed.
Which is
same thing on Instagram. Instagram is somewhere around 10%.
Right.
So when you wonder why you post something on Instagram and you've got 500 friends and you only end up with like 20 thumbs up and you're like, whoa, I suck.
Right. No, it's not you, it's the algorithm.
The organic reach.
It's the organic reach that's, it's called organic reach, but it's constricted by the platform that you're using. So which is the sort of opposite of organic in a way.
It's constricted because it's optimized for what people want.
Right.
So the optimization for what you want throttles back your potential to reach people organically.
Right.
But also think of it like the post office, right? The postal service. Everyone has an address. And just because you have somebody's address doesn't mean it's free to send them something. You could walk over and put something in their mailbox, but you have to pay the postal service to actually put it in the mailbox for you.
Right.
It's the same thing with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, TikTok. You need to pay the platform. TikTok, not as much at the moment. That will change. And that's why when you get into a platform early, you can soar because the algorithm is strictly linear feed. You put it in, it shows up. It's an untouched feed.
But do you think that Mr. Josie Wells in the chat room said, but people don't know what they want? But I'm going to follow with what he said and said, I don't know if it is programmed to necessarily what people want per se, but because that's a very subjective programming of the algorithm, don't you think?
No, it's cake. It's cake for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all these platforms. It's absolute cake for them to know what you want to see because of all the data that's constantly being collected on your user. Sense. Do you know your mouse? When you're on your laptop and you're looking at something on Twitch and you're mousing over things, your mouse movements on Twitch or YouTube are being the data is being recorded from that to know that when you're not and when you are paying attention to parts of the video, and then they marry that data with everybody else. Remember the original YouTube heat charts, right?
Yes.
And you'd see how many people were watching it at a certain time for how long, and if they started to fall off, and you'd see the spot in your video. Oh no, that's a bad spot in my video. I shouldn't do that again. Remember, we'd look at these charts and see, oh wow, everyone's staying. Oh, they're falling off. Okay, that's the good point. Let's edit it. Imagine taking all of that and then showing people their video content based upon that information.
I mean, it's
not nefarious. It's just all the info.
But don't you think that people can get trapped by their own data? Meaning that, like, for me, once I watch a video of somebody beating up somebody else in the street out of just pure curiosity, you know, and I'm used to be a fighter, so I'm like, oh, how did that happen? Then it shows me 10 million of those videos, and I may not want to see those videos anymore. And I don't get access. Like, I want access to a wide variety of things. On Facebook, I want access to all of my friends. But it shows me the same 6 friends over and over and over because maybe they posted something salacious that I clicked on once. I think there's got to be a failure in that, don't you think?
But it goes both ways, because that means typically those people are also looking at you.
Interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
So,
and I hate some of those people.
It goes both ways, right? And so you get that, what I call the Howard Stern principle, is, you know, most of Howard Stern's fans were people who hated him, but listened to him for long periods of time, right? And so I know when I post things about what's going on politically, and I'm in support of Black Lives Matter, and I talk about defunding the police and all this kind of stuff, I know the people who are watching and not saying something, because then when something comes up that they really want to talk about, all of a sudden they're all commenting in there, but before that they weren't, and I'm not looking at their pages at all. So, you know, you can see these behaviors. It's all data, and then what you're trying to do is get people to spend as much time as possible. And you, Jesse, may be anomalous in that you want to look at a whole lot of different things. I do too.
Yeah, me too.
It's hard on these platforms to do that. You have to go out of your way to do it.
Like my guy in the chat room said, it's so hard to force the algorithm off shit sometimes. It is. Like, I watch one video, it's not my life. I agree. And the videos that get your attention the most are the most clickbaity. Like, for me, I've always tried to have a career on real conversation, be it through the videos that I make, the films that I make, that have a lot of complexity to them, that explore a lot of topics. I've never been a clickbaity guy. And I think that I have no other word, suffered for not using that part of the algorithm to my advantage.
We have 11 people watching right now.
Right, 11 people. And the funny thing is, when you say that, my normal, my human instinct is to defend it. And that's a weird thing. And that shows the power of, like, influencers as a status symbol. Meaning that I want to do things my way. And I want to be able to say immediately, I have videos of millions of views and blah, blah, blah. And I've worked with, thanks to Paul, LL Cool J and other people, I want to be able to defend it, because I feel like in our culture, and maybe that's why people don't like influencers sometimes. In our culture, it feels like that if you don't have those numbers, those certain amount of likes, that certain amount of attention, that you have less value as an individual. What do you think?
Well, you have less value to a marketer. You'll have perceived less value to a marketer.
Right, fair enough.
There is amongst millennials and Gen Z, there is absolutely a vanity to the numbers where if you've got this many people following you and somebody else has more, it used to be when we were younger, Jesse, people just wouldn't show up to your birthday party. No one really knew that no one came to your birthday party and you were alone up in the attic.
What?
By yourself.
No, no.
Now everyone knows when you post something that there's not a lot of people. So it's way
I don't really like where any of that went. I'd like the algorithm to filter that out. And thankfully, Paul has very little influence at the moment, except over me. And that's it. That's it. Paul has not hired me for a gig in at least 6 months. So his influence over me is shrinking by the second. It's waning. It's waning. So, I mean, but it's fascinating. We have to sort of admit, though, that the algorithms themselves mess with that.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
And they favor things.
I remember when Amazon first started, it had all the recommended if you like.
Right.
Was the coolest thing they had launched. And, I'd always be like, well, what if I want something else? Why are you showing me all the same stuff? I bought one book about that. I don't want 10 more. I want something fresh.
Right.
New.
Like that's the problem. It doesn't support new things. It supports, in my opinion, the same over and over. Like you take things like
we know people don't like new things.
That's kind of sad.
There's nostalgia. I know what I know. I like what I like.
That's what I hate about Hollywood.
And everything. I don't want to hear a new idea. I don't want to hear a new POV. I don't want to see something new here. I want to go see the next Fast and the Furious movie. Let's make Fast and the Furious 20. It's all the same.
But don't you think that there wouldn't be
reboot everything?
But don't you think there wouldn't
a new idea?
There wouldn't be like a next Handmaid's Tale if not somebody's vision at one of these companies, and then the person had access to that vision, right? But maybe that person. Nowadays, what's changed in media is that even when you go to get a job, it's like people stare at your social media profile and see how many people like you. Isn't that and that happens in interviews. There's like, how many Twitter followers, how much actual influence. Interesting enough, Paul once called me an influencer, and actually probably multiple times. And I'm an influencer for a different reason. Outside of my porn career. No, it's corn career. I just eat corn on camera. Forgive me. Or I'm corn. I'm trying, Paul. I'm trying to make you laugh. Oh, my God. Get the fan out. Get the fan out, you fuck. Right? Blow on that fan. Okay. Yeah. So, but why would you consider me an influencer?
I don't even remember saying that.
Okay, you did, right? But I'm going to tell you why it is, right? Why I'm considered an influencer by some, it's the level of people that I'm connected to because of the work that I've done over the years. So the people who I'm friends with on Facebook and on LinkedIn and this and that, they're people of pretty large amounts of clout. I'm excluding you. You have no clout and you're completely unimportant at this moment. I will raise your value.
Clout with a K.
You have clout. Oh, God. Do you remember that program that was like, there's your value in life as a professional, and then they disappeared into the wind? Well, Paul called me that for that reason, and now he won't give it to me again, and I'm very sad that you won't.
I know why I did. I wanted to see if you remember.
Please don't. Because you've talked about my 11 viewers, and now you have to make up for it by complimenting me in other ways. Because every part of me is soft and shrinking at the moment.
But your glasses are so nice.
They are nice, aren't they? They're paid for by the money I earned working for you.
Creators, people who are creators, people who are content creators, to me are influencers, right? Because you have an ability to create a kind of content in a certain style that appeals to. It's not about the number. It's more like there is a certain style, and it's whatever size your audience is. That's just your proficiency to be able to post and tag and do all this stuff on a regular basis. But knowing what your style is and having seen some of the stuff you did with My Damn Channel, back to the animated movie, the semi-animated movie, all of that, drawn by Payne. Sorry, I blanked for a moment.
No,
there's a style there that I, as a marketer, if that would resonate with my target audience, I would work with you and amplify it, which we've done in more corporate-y things together.
But stuff that made a difference and actually had an influence on culture. I mean, but definitely, you take me, you could say, beyond the early web stuff I did as I'm credited as one of the first vloggers. And that definitely influenced people at the time. I'm credited as working with vloggers and forgetting the stuff I sent in to become Mr. Robot. We'll even talk about that. But, Hillary Clinton's commercial at the DNC is a shot-for-shot copy of my video out of my living room, shot for shot. So the actual entire political landscape was influenced out of my living room from a guy with just a camera.
Let me go get some tinfoil from my head.
No, that's fact, my dude. That is fact, and I will show you the 2 videos, and you'll actually throw it. That is fact. So, and I have to be serious about that because that's the level of influence you can have as a creator. But I don't have the same kind of influencer that we're talking about today, numbers. And they'd be great to have. So we'll go back to them, which is interesting because we can't just have a me and you moment.
But again, to do influencer marketing smart, you don't focus on the number of followers. You focus on their creative style, their voice, and what they can bring to a conversation.
Interesting.
Because the fact organic reach is so shitty. So if I want to reach a certain kind of customer for my brand, that's a subset. It's in essence a subset of your audience, right? Why am I going to focus on how big of an audience you have when I only want a certain subset and I know I'm only going to reach a fraction of your total audience anyway?
Right.
Why would I do it like that? What I would do is I'd work with you, create the content, and then pay the platform to distribute it and amplify it to exactly the audience I want. That also removes fraud. That also takes fraud completely out of the equation.
Great. So that's awesome. And I'm going to go to the chat in a second, some really good stuff. But I think that, so somebody who's starting out, right? Obviously, I'm way beyond that on that journey, but I still face some of the same struggles because I still chase some of those same metrics. Somebody who's starting out and wants to get to influencer status where they're paid to have their own style go out to an audience, that person, being that organic traffic, even if I have a Facebook page and say I have 5,000 likes on the page, only reaches 2% of people that I go out to organically without paying for it. How does that person, without starring in a major show and without paying for it, grow? And I kind of know the answer to this, but I'd love to hear you say it because it's interesting. And Paul.
What? Oh, sorry. I didn't know it was my turn again. What do they do?
How do they grow an audience without
figures? I hope they get lucky.
Yeah. If they don't get lucky and they don't get cast in something big, right?
Yeah.
And without paying for it, what do you think?
It's what you do is you keep making content that's true to who you are and the voice that you have. And if your voice starts to resonate with people and it starts to accelerate, it will accelerate. And having a moment that goes, when we say a moment goes viral, it just means it breaks through that organic reach number. The way it does that is people start searching for it, and all of a sudden the platform recognizes that people are actually looking for this content, then it starts showing it to more people, and therefore it can accelerate on its own.
Right. And I think that's a great answer. Or somebody else hands you a megaphone. That helps too. Like another influencer grants you some of their influence power.
You do a collaboration, right?
Right, or not a collaboration. Somebody finds your content from a much bigger platform and goes, whoosh, and picks you up into it and gives you that moment to spotlight. Sure. And that goes to their 2% audience or much more because they have access, and then you blow up from there. That's a great answer. I'm going to go to chat for a second. Luke said, I would also say you're an influencer, so you had your own community. I basically had Jest Chat, which was Zoom before Zoom, using Userplane, which got bought by AOL, which is hilarious. And you didn't just interact with people, but you also took time to say the things you wanted and not just get feedback, but get right into discussions. Well, that's the interesting thing. What moves usually, not always, is not discussion. What moves is things that get people's attention fast. Lengthy discussion through art, unless somebody else is sponsoring it in some way. And that's why it's so necessary for big companies to find people that they think are massively talented and then give them that megaphone. It's good for the companies because things like, again, The Handmaid's Tale can exist. And they find audiences because they give that platform. But when they don't do that active searching, well, then it's just the race to the bottom as far as clickbait. I love how you've just gone all like jack-o'-lantern on me. It's amazing. I feel like we're in a club. I was wondering what it's like to go clubbing with you, and now I never want to think about it ever again. Please, can you make us? Oh no, it went away when I went on big screen. That's amazing. Okay, so Paul was, for those just listening, flashing a light onto his face as if it was 1985 and he was about to hit his stride. Okay, so we make fun of each other constantly, even when we work together. Me and Paul have been friends for, I don't know, like 15 years maybe, in that range, right?
07.
07. So I got on the web real early. Paul had a company called For Your Imagination. And For Your Imagination was one of the first companies to put high quality, he had his own studio, content on the web, starring people like, rest in peace, Patrice O'Neill and other celebrities.
That was the first web TV series with a TV person, with a TV star in it.
Amazing. And he had like brands involved early. We were working together then, and he did a real service. And a lot of people don't know this because I think there was a fight in web video early on, and it was a fight between New York and LA. And now this doesn't exist anymore because web video is everywhere. But it was a fight for who will control like which place is producing the coolest web video or the next wave of this. And Paul was in New York, and we were ahead of the people in LA. They had not figured it out because they all work in production jobs. They were like, what is this web shit? We don't care. And Paul and people like myself and Rooster Teeth was in Austin, but there was a bunch of companies in New York, Blip TV, For Your Imagination, and multiple others that were doing this web video. And Paul had the foresight to run in, and it was hard because it was an upsell because no one knew what the web really was in the beginning. But in addition to making this company, which produced a ton of great stuff, he also had this meetup called Little Screen, Big Screen. Or was it Big Screen, Little Screen? Big Screen, Little Screen.
Big Screen, Little Screen.
Forgive me, I adjusted. I figured it out. But Big Screen, Little Screen had like many iterations of what it was a meetup where everybody would come every week and show this thing called web videos.
We would screen like 5 series or videos.
Right.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And in the beginning, it was like all creators. Right, and where you saw the web change it was all creators. It was like me and like the guys who would eventually go on to be Next New Network people, like Eric Beck and Justin Johnson, who did Indie Mogul and all the shows over there. And these people, a lot of them got absorbed into YouTube and had careers and had big numbers. And that was like that crew of Tom Woodley of The Berg, who went on to become I think the head of College Humor's content or something like that. And like these guys went on and had real influence in the web because we were so like cutting edge on the cusp. And Paul was responsible for connecting a lot of those people. So we definitely owe you not only a thanks for bringing us all together, but I thought you did a really cool thing for the web early on. Really cool. And a lot of us were not, I hate to say it, but not rewarded for that effort because the fight began, and even in Paul's circle, the creators came less to those meetups, and all the suits started showing up. It was really interesting.
Remember that? It was crazy.
It was interesting. It was like it went from like a bunch of fucking people who just like didn't shave and weren't well dressed to like all the beautiful people, and all of a sudden I'm like, who are these people, and why are they? And why are they all like when the movie is playing, the web movie, and they're all like 60 of them in the corner trading business cards. It was bizarre. But thanks to Paul to really starting a lot of what was early web has become what you see now. And that's why I'm so thankful to Paul and Rob Barnett and even a lot of the Felicia Days and the LA creators and the Rooster Teeths, because if not for that trailblazing, we would not have a lot of the content that we've had over the years.
Yeah, like Yuri Baranovsky at Break a Leg.
Absolutely.
The Break a Leg stuff happened. Oh my God, that stuff was beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. And they've gone on to have directing careers and this and that. So let's get back to influencers. Fabulous. But that's a good side note. And then Paul used his knowledge, I believe, from that and became, worked at Digitas, like in these big agencies, these big creative agencies, which had huge budgets, right, to spend money on web video. And you would occasionally help friends. You'd pick people up, and you deserve credit for it. You're a pain in the ass, and you're a wise ass, but you're a good pain in the ass, and you're a good wise ass. All right, so let's get back to influencers. Yes. So how much influence does an influencer actually have? I know that's... Influencer.
I
know, I was going to see if you would run with that.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, I
don't know. What was the question?
So a big influencer, how much influence do they actually have over people's decision-making?
in a lot of research that's done by the various platforms, companies like ourselves, there is a fairly high degree of buying power through the influencers. In other words, that their fan bases can be helped along to purchase a certain product. It is fairly high. And in every study, and I think it's one of those that's very hard to quantify, because in a study, you're going to get somebody who's going to say, oh, yeah, I'm influenced. Yeah. I sometimes think about somebody doing this or whatever. It actually could be higher. It could be less. I don't know. But it is substantial enough that we had rolled out a whole division called Shopper Marketing, which is specifically about working with influencers to help move product off physical shelves. Like getting people to go into Target, getting people to go into Walmart, and actually buy the product based on content that influencers have created.
That's awesome. So let me ask you the next question. And yeah, I was about to say, you're getting a little dark there. Do you have a little, can you turn the camera towards the other way?
No.
Okay, don't worry about it.
I'll be back.
Okay, he's coming back. So any questions from the chat room while Mr. Paul is away? I'll read some of the comments. Let's say,
how's that?
Much better. You're very shiny. You have a very shiny complexion. You reflect very well. Okay, so next question, and I think this is an important one. Should an influencer come with a social conscience?
I think everyone should use their influence for positive social change. Absolutely. And one of the things that we had created was mandating a couple of things when working with an influencer. One is the influencer had to say why they want to work with this product, why they want to work with this company. And they had to actually write think of it like writing an essay of why I want to work with this product or company. If they didn't, we were like, no, sorry, and that stumped some people where they couldn't actually phrase it, or they just put, I would be really cool, or I'm going to make money. And it was like, yeah, you're not the right fit.
That's awesome. So I'm sure not every company feels that way. Some people just buy them for the metrics of, like, let's take, for instance, and I don't want to go into a specific name, but we know certain people on YouTube and who've gotten in a lot of trouble for things that they've done and ways that they've acted. And I'm not big on censorship, but with brands, right, that didn't show a moral conscience. In fact, it's the lack of moral conscience that got them their following in the first place. What do you think of that? People who chase it, more of like the troll. Even it just happened on Twitch with this guy, and I don't know what happened, but Dr. Disrespect is in trouble with Twitch. He got banned from Twitch. He was one of the top streamers. And what is there a responsibility on the way up? And if you have that responsibility, can it hurt your climb? I think it does hurt your climb, because a lot of being salacious and being awful. Look at Howard Stern. I love Howard Stern, but a lot of what got people to pay attention to him was being the way Howard was sometimes. What do you think?
I think, one, it's the responsibility of the platforms to clean things up. And two, the advertisers need to be very conscious of that and recognize that maybe in the past it didn't matter so much. And maybe with a boomer audience that don't want the brands to have a social conscience, they don't want the brands to have a political POV, they could get away with doing that stuff. But now with millennials and younger, there is an expectation that the brand that you buy from, how they stand politically. And when you find out Chick-fil-A spends money on anti-gay programs, that influences the marketplace to go, wait a minute, I'm not going to spend my money here. I'm going to cancel this, right? And so the advertisers need to be very aware as well of what is the kind of content that these creators are creating. And some is great and wonderful, and some is highly questionable. And so if those two parameters kick into play correctly, then it disincentivizes these creators, when you could still buy on somebody who is being offensive, and you can still, and their numbers are flying, and as an advertiser you can buy against it,
right,
and they're still making money, well, then they have no incentive to do anything other than to continue going down that pathway. Because
you feel like nowadays, right, what's changed is, because I guess we have more access to information, is that people are making purchases based upon what the direction that they want to see culture and their country go. Would you say?
More than ever.
More than ever, right? Yeah, that's
right?
what shifted, right? What do you think of, and I do this talk a lot, of people that have said things in the past but are different people currently? Because I've said all kinds of crazy stuff, and I fully admit that I'm a joker and a clown, a really nice guy at heart, but I have a wild sense of humor. So how does that work into the future of influencer marketing?
So I want to use a Hall & Oates example here.
Please.
For many, many, many years, their first album was some of the most listened to music on Spotify, was driving crazy numbers, and was very, very popular, even though it had come out a long time past. Because of the ability to freely access content of the past, music, videos, concerts, movies, they almost become no longer in the past. They become always in the now, always in the present.
Fascinating.
Because you can see them at any given moment. So what used to be, 50 years ago, somebody said this, or 10 years ago, or 3 years ago, it's no longer a go. It's now, because of how you get everything. And so I think it is more difficult now to get away with things like that. And it's going to come back at some point. The bigger you get, the more of a spotlight you will have on you.
Right.
And you're going to need to be ready to face up to it.
Right.
And if you have built a career on with equity with your audience, that you are a genuine human being that cares about humanity and is responsible for their actions, and something comes up from your past, you can deal with it,
right?
Because you've managed to build the equity and say, hey, look, that was then. I mean,
you look at like Eminem,
different, and
right?
that's it.
Eminem dropped some N-words in a song when he was like 18, very, very negative, and he says, look, I was a stupid kid. And you knew he had changed and evolved. He was not the same person who would do that specific action. And for me, I can only speak for myself. For me, I've been very forthright about speaking, even in this conversation, to bring up that I'm not a perfect person, and especially culture has shifted in the time. I mean, somebody in the chat room mentioned his state doesn't really, he said, go watch Blazing Saddles and leave my jokes alone.
Beautiful movie.
And
perfect.
So, but it's
never could be made now.
But it's under fire right now. That movie's under fire. We just talked about, before the stream, we talked about Back to the Future, and how Back to the Future, some people are after it because of the Libyans as terrorists beginning.
But wait a minute, let's go back to Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles was made on purpose.
Right.
To bring race into question right away, and to point out the endemic systemic, implicit, systemic, all those things within the U.S. culture at the time. It was that vehicle, and
amazing.
It's coming into forefront now even more because we have even more evidence of it than ever, right? So that's why that movie is so important.
So let's keep going with the other questions. So, an expert who's an expert at something, right? And gets a platform for being an expert. Let's take a Dr. Fauci, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci,
influencer.
Expert or influencer?
Influencer.
Okay.
Now he's an influencer because he's reached another status.
Right.
Where, people sing songs about him and everything.
Or they hate him, either way.
Right. They sing songs about him, right? Either way, love or hate. And so he's reached another level.
So it's about really how much reach you have, not about how much expertise you have.
No, I mean reach in that he's transformed from just an expert into somebody that if he changed the color of his suit, everyone would care.
It's true. It's very, very, very interesting. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me get to Paul's face while he swats away flies. I think this is an important moment to capture on camera. Thank you, Paul. So,
no, that's a firefly. I'm not going to.
No. Fireflies that
that's good.
That they light up the sky in your very dark face. Okay, so another thing I was speaking about somebody about today was, do you think, now they're already influencers, journalists, but do you think that journalists, because they've gone, many of them, more towards opinion have become much more influencers than just journalists.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, once you had nightly news and the news from Walter Cronkite days, even before him, once you had that platform where they were delivering the news and you pretty much chose whether you liked ABC, NBC, CBS, based on whether you liked Ted Koppel, Peter Jennings, or whoever else.
Right.
At that point, they're influencers. They're no longer just a news anchor or no longer just a journalist, right? And so I think that's the play for everybody at this point, is everyone is trying to be more than, once you have a platform, you have the opportunity to be more than just that, have that one area of expertise. You can become, something like if Wolf Blitzer started doing influencer campaigns, I wouldn't be surprised. People would pay attention to it.
So that's amazing. What about the danger of somebody like an Alex Jones? And
yeah, I mean, look, he's got fans. He's got people who want to hear him. And that's the danger, right? Is that now will a brand, if a brand believes the same things politically as him, yeah, they would run to him and they would pay him to do stuff without a problem if they believe politically that's the same thing. But it can happen. I mean, because we have access to all these platforms, and these platforms do give us the ability to start broadcasting in ways that we couldn't broadcast before, you have that opportunity that you could find a message that resonates.
Would you agree that Barack Obama and then Donald Trump following are the first two influencer presidents? Obviously, presidents before them had a large reach, but the amount of social media activity that the two of them had, because all of Obama's campaign was the first one to ever really utilize social media in the way it did. And then obviously Trump with his Twitter feed. I like how you swat away the flies the second I mentioned Donald Trump. Please continue. It's just, it's very instinctual. You're instinctual.
You hear the little zapping?
I heard the zapping, and I had a little wishful thinking.
I want you to amplify it on
I will.
the
Thank
you.
Yeah. It's funny that it's an orange racket too that you're swinging. Please tell me, what do you think?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think maybe I would say who had the first presidential Twitter account?
Oh, I don't know.
Bush?
It's probably pretty old at this point. Just to have it. But it might have been on a Bush.
Right.
So,
who was president in 07, 08?
What's Bush 07? Jr. What is that? Oh, I'm sorry. Time is irrelevant at this point. We're in 2020. Yeah. Everything is lost. Okay. So is it influencing or is it optimizing? Meaning that are they pushing, when an influencer is marketing something, are they pushing their own opinions or someone else's?
To be authentic, they need to push and stick to their own.
Interesting.
To be authentic.
And that's the ones you're most interested in, right?
Yeah, well, they're the ones that have something, right? They've locked on to something. Just somebody who does some pretty pictures, okay, whatever. I like to use as a measuring stick. Can we work with that influencer, take their content, and then put it on TV, and will it still work? Meaning, do you have to know who that influencer is for it to work?
Interesting.
And I think the power of the influencer is in them being able to connect to their audience type, even if they don't know who it is. We worked with Sam Shuey for McDonald's, and he did an amazing little song number that we did with him. He recorded almost like a music video and everything. And it was genius because we could take that and run it on TV. And even if you didn't know who Sam was, you'd go, wow, that was really cool. That was a cool little song. Bingo. That's beautiful. That's key influencer marketing.
Amazing. So have you ever taken an influencer who is not a higher level when you're in all the years of doing marketing and advertising? And he's, for reference, Paul has been a chief marketing officer for quite a few companies at this point. Have you ever taken, as he swats away things in front of him? I love it when Paul takes nothing serious until he does. Have you ever, and thank you, people are rating me. Have you ever taken an influencer and really elevated them to another next level of influencer with a marketing campaign for one of the companies you work for?
Yeah, and I think that's the opportunity that influencers have working with advertisers and working with brands is they want the power of the advertiser, right? And that advertiser can act as a cheerleader and take their content that they're creating with their brand and just amplify it everywhere. They could be a collaborator. They can also be a resource provider and say, hey, Jesse, we absolutely love what you do. Listen, we're going to buy you all new equipment. We're going to do all this stuff. We're going to give you a show. You're awesome. And we're going to be the sponsor of it. That's where they provide resources that you don't have access to. And we found multiple occasions where we knew people were on the rise or had just really high levels of engagement. We're making absolutely beautiful content for a certain reason, whether we did a beautiful campaign with Volvo once that we worked with this filmmaker who was just, really expanding, but was just great content and, created the platform for him.
That's amazing. And so did you as a person, and anybody who has questions in the chat for Paul, who's a master of influencer marketing, please let us know. Paul, I want to ask you personally, for me, what not just what's next career-wise but what's next in your life, as far as what would you want to do most as in this kind of field? What would you like to see happen? Like if you had unlimited budgets to do whatever you wanted, right, in the media universe, besides swatting flies with that racket, what would you want to do? Because here's a bunch of people in this chat room who maybe aspire to be content creators or people who watch this on YouTube or listen on Spotify or iTunes. See how I plugged all those things? That was pretty good, right? What would you want to do with it?
What would I want to see happen, or what would I want to do with it?
Either way.
Well, I think influencer marketing the reality is sinking in that it is not find somebody with a whole lot of followers, give them your product, hope they make something cool, and then sit back and see what happens, right? I think we're actually, even though I've been saying this since maybe 2017, that no, that's not the way to do it. Maybe even earlier than that. I think now it's finally being understood that that's not the way to go about it. And that there are more and more companies realizing that you use data to start identifying key talent. Instead of calling them influencers, more thinking of them as creative talent. Use the data to find the talent, then find who's the right person to work with. And within each category, maybe there's the top 10% that you really want to work with that are easy to work with, clever people, true collaborators, people who are able to understand a brand brief and say, oh, this is the way I would express it, right? That's why that thing worked so well with Sam, was he understood what we needed to do for McDonald's. And he said, oh, this is the way I would do it. Bingo, that's what you want to hear, versus I don't do it that way. I just do this, or, just tell me what to do, right? I think we're, as an industry, getting to that point. So that's the good part. But it also means that it's changing and becoming less of a 10 million influencer world and more of there's not really that many, maybe 20, 30,000 total.
Amazing. So I'm going to go to the chat room for a second. Mr. Lockscar said, you're the guy who took a professional picture of me at TwitchCon. He's talking about me. I can't thank you enough. I doubt, could have been, right? I doubt you even remember who I am. I'm the guy in the plague doctor mask. Well, it's funny now because everybody's in a plague doctor mask. So it's just kind of blurred out for me. But I actually do remember you. But what's interesting about TwitchCon was the way I decided to meet people and relate to them was to do one of the things that I did well. If there was no way for me to pull up a stream or an internet video and be like, watch my video, everybody. So I did the very basic thing, was I took my camera and said, let me offer my small amount of talent to every single person I come across at TwitchCon and make them look as good as I think that they would want to look in this circumstance and create a good memory for them and give them something that's a little more than the average. And what it did was, it's the same thing as like putting yourself online. It's the exact same process. It created connections between me and other people, and it influenced people on a one-to-one basis, but those people are on a one-to-many sometimes, by just expressing what I had to give. So I'm happy you're here. I appreciate that, and the people that you brought in. Mr. Josie Wells said, for Paul.
I like Josie's question.
I do like Josie's as well. So if a potential influencer has a lower quality work production-wise, like they aren't film students, they're just getting themselves out there and getting buzz. Could you pass them over due to production knowledge, even if they have a pulse or have a pulse on things?
No, because one of the things that we can do is we can bring production skills. So again, when we worked with Sam, we elevated the production level of his content. Looked like big fancy music video, which wasn't typically what he would do. There is no excuse at this point, given the quality of everyone's cell phone, their mobile phone, their iPhone, even if it's an Android, I guess. Since there's such high quality there, you should never be at a loss for production quality. That's even though we can make it better, but you should never be at a loss.
Okay, so if you had to give one bit of advice beyond that, Paul, to somebody starting out, somebody who says, I want to have a career in this, and part of that now has become, and besides getting cast on a TV show, because that's just luck. We know that's luck.
Yeah, that was a crazy answer.
No, it's not a crazy answer. It's a real answer, because it does solve the problem, but it's hitting the lotto, right? What's a piece of advice you would give to somebody? Even I could take it, because I think you're a smart guy sometimes. I have to give you little digs. It's just my thing. Now, what's a piece of advice that you would give somebody starting out and say, this is the way you should go, knowing that the influencer marketing is going to be a large part of their career at this point, no matter what part of the arts they enter into?
You really need to tap into something you love, where you have a passion, where you can be focused on that passion all the time, and then be open to the feedback you get from your audience and understanding, is this working, is this not working, and how to change how you express your passion. And then if you have that devotion to it and you're continuously creating content and willing to jump to a new platform once it comes out, you're on your way to doing the things you need to do to become a quote unquote influencer. You can buy followers to get you to maybe 10,000 followers or something. Do you really need to do it? No, they're all bots. They're not really followers. So it doesn't really help. Is there a perception value? Yeah, there's a perception value to having more than a few. If all of a sudden you're in the thousands on Instagram, you're different than if you only have, I don't know, what does Jeskidding have on Instagram? 436? That's like whatever. So, there's that perception part of it as well. So, but find that area of passion, and you just got to make content nonstop in it.
Do you feel, last question for me, do you feel that with enough time, uniqueness to your voice, effort, and willingness to market yourself, that it is not an impossible journey for the everyday guy or gal?
Under the definition of a company that thinks there's 10 million influencers, yeah, you're done. You're in. You're good. Go for it. You check all the boxes. You're in. And in the reality of there's probably only 20,000 influencers total. It's just like anything else. You decide you want to be an actor. Are you going to make it big or not? You're in a band. Are you going to make it big or not? Are you an athlete? Are you going to be the one that makes it big, right? So it's just like anything else. I think you can try everything, do everything, and still nothing will click. We know writers who have written great things over the years and just keep writing stuff and just never find that opportunity to write the hit or something really good. Or, I had a music management company from 92 to 95. And, I worked with a bunch of different bands, and one got signed to Elektra, and they broke up consequently after signing, the day after. But how hard it is to be in a band and get signed. And even if you get signed, that doesn't mean your record's going to do well. It's the same thing. It's just like anything else.
So you have to be okay with pursuing it to pursue it.
You have to love it because you love it, and not really be looking at it from a numbers perspective. But what you do need to be able to do is self-edit and adjust and be willing to change with all of a sudden something. Like all of a sudden you might be on Twitch because all of a sudden that's a cool spot to be in. And there you are making these videos on Twitch. That's also a podcast. And, you just have to be ready to adapt.
Yeah, you really, really do. Last quick question for you. Who's chopping up a dead body in the house next to you?
Oh, that's the fireworks.
Oh, it's fireworks. I heard
fireworks.
Quack. I'm like, is there something you need to tell me, Paul? Has something happened?
Great sound effects, man.
I just want to say thank you.
Some more bugs.
More bugs. Thank you to Paul for his gracious time. Thank you, Paul, for giving a community for us web filmmakers when it was new. Thank you for Paul for working with me over the years, and for hiring me to do a lot of WHOSAY's work, and for getting me to direct Aaron Andrews, Mark Consuelos, and LL Cool J, and learn from Fortune 100 CMOs, and trusting me with the skills that he's watched me show over all these years. I appreciate you, Paul. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to us both hopefully doing things that we really love and making some of that stuff happen. And thank you, Twitch and everybody else, and all love and good vibes.
Thanks, guys.